King Thrushbeard by the Brothers Grimm. A king had a daughter who was beautiful beyond measure, but she was so proud and overbearing that none of her suitors were good enough for her. She not only refused them one after the other, but made a laughingstock of them. Once the king arranged a great feast and bade all the marriageable men from far and near to come. And they were all seated in rows according to their rank and station. First came the kings, then the princes, the dukes, the earls, the barons, and lastly, the noblemen. The princess was led in to see them, but she had a mocking name for each. One was too fat.
What a tub!
Another too tall.
Long and lean, cannot be seen.
A third too short.
Fat and short, not fit for court.
A fourth was too red-faced.
A gamecock.
A fifth was not well formed.
Greenwood, poorly dried.
So each one had something against him, and she made especially merry over a good king who was very tall and whose chin had grown a little peaked.
Only look, he has a chin like a thrush's beak.
And from that time they called him King Thrushbeard. But the old king was very angry.
As my daughter mocks and scorns all of her suitors, I swear that she shall have the first beggar that comes to my door as her husband.
A few days afterward came a traveling ballad singer who sang under the window in hopes of a few pennies. When the king heard of this, he said that the singer must come in. And so the ballad singer entered in his dirty rags and sang before the king and his daughter. When he had finished, he asked for a small reward. But the king told him,
Thy song has so well pleased me that I will give you my daughter as your wife.
Oh, no, father, please.
I took an oath to give you to the first beggar that came, and so it must be done.
There was no remedy. The priest was fetched, and she had to be married to the ballad singer at once. When all was done, the king spoke.
Now, since you are the wife of a beggar, you can no longer stay in my castle. So, off with you and your husband.
The beggar man led her away, and she was obliged to go forth with him on foot. On the way, they came to a great wood, and she asked,
Oh, whose forest is this?
It is King Thrushbeard's, and remember it might have been yours.
Oh, I was such a silly young thing. I wish that I had chosen that good King Thrushbeard.
Then they passed a thick meadow.
Whose meadow is this, so green and fine?
It is King Thrushbeard's, and remember it might have been yours.
Oh, I was such a silly young thing. I wish that I had chosen that good King Thrushbeard.
Then they passed through a great town, and she asked,
Whose town is this, so great and fine?
It is King Thrushbeard's, and remember it might have been yours.
Oh, I was such a silly young thing. I wish that I had chosen that good King Thrushbeard.
It does not please me to hear you always wishing for another husband. Am I not good enough for you?
The princess did not answer, and they continued walking until they came to a very small house, and she said,
Oh, dear me, whose wretched hole is this? It is so small.
That is my house and yours, where we must live together.
I have to stoop to enter this house. And where are the servants?
There are no servants. You must do everything yourself. Make a fire, quick. Put on the water and cook me a meal. I am very tired and hungry.
But the king's daughter understood nothing about fire-making and cooking, and the beggar man had to do most of the work. And when they finished their simple meal, they went to bed. Early in the morning, the princess had to get up and begin to clean the house. She was learning the hard life of a poor man's wife. For a few days, they lived in this manner. But the larder was beginning to get bare, and the husband said,
Wife, this will not do. We must earn some money. I have it. You must make some baskets.
But...
No buts! I'm going to the woods.
So he went into the woods and cut some willows and brought them home to his wife. She began to weave them, but the hard twigs wounded her tender hands.
I see that this will not do. Perhaps you'd better try spinning.
So she sat down and tried to spin, but the coarse thread cut her soft fingers so that the blood flowed.
Look now, you are no good at any sort of work. I made a bad bargain when I took you. I must see what I can do to make a business of pots and earthen vessels. You will sit in the marketplace and try to sell them.
Oh, dear. What if some of my father's people would see me in the marketplace as a tradeswoman? They would mock me.
But there was no help for the princess. She had to do it or else they would starve. Actually, the first day went very well.
Fish, freshly caught fish. Haddock.
The people bought her wares eagerly because she was so beautiful, and some of them gave her money and forgot to take the pots they bought. With the money she earned, more pots were bought and brought to market. She seated herself in a corner of the market and spread the earthen pots around her to attract buyers. All at once, a drunken horse soldier rode into the midst of her pots and broke them into 1,000 pieces and then rode off. The princess could only weep and hasten home to her husband.
Whoever heard of such a thing as sitting in the corner of a market with earthenware pots? Now stop your crying. I see you're not fit for any regular work. I've been asking at your father's castle if they want a kitchen maid, and they said they don't mind taking you. There won't be much money, but at least you will be able to get some food.
And the king's daughter became a kitchen maid, to be at the cook's beck and call, and to do the hardest work. In each of her pockets she fastened a little pot and brought home in them the leftovers from the king's table. Thus she and her husband were able to live. Then it happened one day that a wedding was to be celebrated in the castle. A neighboring prince was to be married, and the entire castle was decorated for the festive occasion. The princess, or rather the kitchen maid, stood partially hidden by the main entranceway and watched in awe and sorrow as each handsome guest entered the castle. All was brilliant and splendor, and she thought of her own fate with a sad heart. Her former pride and haughtiness had brought her so low and to such poverty. Then the prince who was to be married entered, and he was dressed in silk and velvet with a gold chain around his neck. He paused and glanced around and caught sight of the kitchen maid, or rather the princess, hiding behind the door. He called to her.
Come, my pretty kitchen maid. On my wedding day, everybody shall dance and make merry.
But the princess refused, all trembling, for she saw it was King Thrushbeard who had come to court her, and whom she had turned away with mocking. But it was useless to resist. He drew her into the ballroom and commenced to dance with her. As he whirled her around, the 2 pots that were tied to her sides fell to the floor with a clatter, and all the meats that she put into them were scattered around. And when the guests saw what happened, they laughed and mocked her, and the princess was so ashamed that she ran from the ballroom. As she reached the steps leading out of the castle, an arm seized her. It was King Thrushbeard.
Do not be afraid. I am the beggar man with whom you lived in the wretched little hut. For the love of you, I disguised myself as a balladeer, and it was I, in the guise of a soldier horseman, who broke all your pots in the marketplace. I did all this to bring down your proud heart and show you the evil of haughtiness.
I now realize how foolish and mean I acted.
Take courage, princess. Your sorry days are over.
But who are you marrying today?
Marrying? Why, I am being remarried, and to a true princess. You. Come, let us not keep the wedding party waiting.
With the aid of the ladies-in-waiting, the princess was dressed in the most splendid of clothing. And her father came, and the whole court, and wished her joy on her marriage to King Thrushbeard. And then the merrymaking began in good earnest. I cannot help wishing that you and I could have been there too.